first of all, the government couldn't do it if they wanted to. Right? If you go back and parse Jerome Powell's comments on the subject, 6 months to 12 months ago, he was pretty much saying that in about 4 years, we'll study it, and maybe in 8 years, we'll do something. And then I think Christina Lagarde at the same time said, well, we've decided we're going to start studying it. And the Chinese were testing it. So in terms of the spectrum, the Chinese were sort of aggressively testing it. The Europeans were thinking about studying it. And the Americans weren't even thinking about studying it yet, to paraphrase. There's no political consensus. There's no political will in this country for the central bank to actually issue currency. You can see that in the utterances of senators and congressmen for the past 3 months. They recoil in horror at that idea. You can also see it with the withdrawal of the name of the candidate for the OCC. Do you see, like, she just withdrew her candidacy because she had articulated support for such a notion as you just described, and nobody wanted to see that. So keep in mind that, you think the banks, you think JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup, or the like, you think they would like to see it? So sometimes I think we're too, what is the word, imaginative in our conspiracy theories. You can't simultaneously have a strong banking lobby that's your enemy, and then also imagine the government overcoming the same strong banking lobby to also be your enemy, right? So if you see the world in that adversarial way, you think the worst. But a different view is this, which is, it's not bad for the United States dollar to spread around the world. It is not bad if the banks start issuing the dollar. And if people could move the dollar faster on some kind of high-speed crypto rail, then maybe that'd be good for Bitcoin, right? Everybody advances together. So what do I think will happen? Yeah, I mean, I think that you're going to see big banks. You're going to see, it's not clear to me whether JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs will jump on this as aggressively as Silvergate Bank. It's not clear, but it is clear that someone's going to get on this very aggressively. It'll either be like an Avanti, moving forward, or it'll be a Silvergate Bank who have already said they're doing it. I mean, they've been very explicit about it, or it'll be a JP Morgan or a Bank of America that'll do it. Government, again, governments have to be very adept at doing things, and oftentimes they're not. So I don't expect any of these governments to do it effectively. Even in China, I don't think the Chinese government is nearly as effective as their private sector. I mean, we saw that with the Alipay, Alibaba, WeChat type issues. They still have companies, and there is still tension between the companies, the regulators, and the central party, right? I mean, there's a federal level of the Chinese government. Then there's a provincial level. It was provincial politicians supporting Bitcoin mining in China. And then there's regulators, and then there's companies. So it's just hard. And ultimately, you have to have the technical wherewithal to do it. But I guess even then, it doesn't really so much matter what any other regulator thinks, right? The single most important entity here is the United States and the administration, right? Because if the dollar is the world's reserve currency, then the digital dollar, right, as defined by the administration and the regulators, Treasury, et cetera, are going to set the standard for how digital dollars move. And I think it's pretty clear what they want. What they want is either you're an FDIC approved bank or some public regulated entity that meets the same standards. If you read the SEC denial letter on the spot ETF, what they say over and over again is they're troubled by the fact that Bitcoin trades on crypto exchanges that do not meet the standards and abide by the principles of national securities exchanges. And those principles include ideas like don't lie, cheat, and steal from the customer, right? Right? So if you look at the principles there, they're basically saying we want transparency and a set of principles, and we want them to be abided by in the crypto exchanges. And with the stable coins, they're saying, we want to be able to trust that just like a bank. And we don't want I mean, the real, the nightmare scenario would be some entrepreneur offshore has 10 billion in capital. What if I put, 10 billion of an altcoin backed by, I could have $100 million in capital. I could spin up Yo-Yo coin and have 10 billion of Yo-Yo coin. I could mint an NFT on it and I could trade it to myself 3 times from 100,000 to 1 million to 10 million. I could print it all with basically wash trades. I could lever it up 20 to 1, have 25, 30, 40 billion of Yo-Yo coin. And then I could use it to back a stable coin, and the stable coin becomes 200 billion or 500 billion worth of US dollars. That's the nightmare scenario, right? Where you've got like nothing at the bottom. You've got a crypto punk that circulated 6 times in blind wash sales that was levered up to an altcoin, that was levered up to a stable coin that was released. And now that stuff gets into consumers' wallets and it gets used for commerce and it becomes a systemic risk. So you can't blame the regulators in that way when they say, we don't like the idea that there's blind wash trades with no surveillance agreements. And we don't like the idea that the stablecoin issuers don't meet our standards as banks. And, the crypto community will say, oh yeah, well, that's like, that's the regulators attacking Bitcoin. There's nothing to do with Bitcoin, right? Like I saw today, some crypto punk thing traded for $10 million. Okay. But, like if I sold it to myself 6 times,